Okay, Doctor, can you start now?
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, everyone. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the seminar session, and thank you for coming along. My name is Azadeh Karimi, as you're seeing in the slide. I'm an assistant professor at the Ferdowsi University of Mashhad in the Faculty of Natural Resources and Environment. And if I want to introduce briefly myself, I can say that my main expertise is environmental planning and management, and within this expertise, I obviously have some research interests that I've been working on about around I think 10 to 15 years now. So these research interests include protected area management, which is the topic of the seminar today. Conservation planning, I'm really interested in working on ecosystem services, land use planning, and also the use of public participation approach in all of these topics. Yes, I have my email address here, and yeah, we can talk about the different things at the end of this seminar. And just another point that I would like to say here, we were told by the international office that our main audience will be undergraduate students from Basrah University. So I have prepared the content of the seminar for this main audience. So hopefully they are here today and enjoy the content of the session. So let's get the presentation started. So this is the outline of what I'm going to go through, guys, today, the different sections of my talk. We will talk about biodiversity, protected areas, and we'll provide some definitions for these sections. And then we will talk about some international attempts that have been done, obviously by RUCM and CBD as well. Then I will explain about the protected areas and societies and some interrelationships that exist there. Next, we will talk about assessing and improving protected area management. I will let you know about the steps that need to be undertaken when you want to prepare a management plan for protected area. And lastly, I have some take-home messages for you at the end of this presentation. So first, yes, want to introduce biodiversity. Obviously, we all know what biodiversity is, but I have some definitions for you guys in the slide as we are seeing. Yes, the first one, biodiversity, is the variability among living organisms from all sources, and we all know that biodiversity have different levels. For example, we have genes, species, ecosystems, and also different culture, human culture that exists. And also, yeah, you are seeing that I have some examples for you from ecosystem level, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems. The next point is saying biodiversity forms the foundation of the vast group of ecosystem services that critically contribute to human well-being. We will talk more about ecosystem services in the next slides, but let me finish the definition of biodiversity first. The next one is saying biodiversity is important in human managed as well as in natural ecosystems, which means that no matter what type of system you are trying to manage, it doesn't matter if it's human or managed ecosystems or natural systems. In both types of systems, if you want to try to manage them well, you need to conserve biodiversity. And the last point, decisions humans make about biodiversity affect the well-being of themselves and others. Which means that whatever decision we make about biodiversity or conserving biodiversity affects our well-being or our quality of life first, and then also we can affect the quality of life and survival of different species that exist on the Earth. So, yes, we said that we want to conserve biodiversity, but what is biodiversity conservation? It means maintaining the diversity of species, habitats, and also different kinds of interrelationships that exist between organisms and the environment. So, protecting and conserving these two parts, diversity of species and habitats, and also considering the interrelationships between these two parts can help ecosystems stay healthy and function well. So uh, I pose this question: why should we conserve biodiversity? Why should we do that? Obviously, we can think of a variety of reasons to conserve biodiversity, and I just have the three main broad reasons for conserving biodiversity that we see in this slide. For example, the first one I'll be really for you biodiversity resources, because biodiversity provides a whole bunch of biological resources for us as humans that we can use in our daily lives. For example, food, fibers, medicines, wood products, and etc. The other main broad reason is ecosystem services. We know that biodiversity provides a wide range of services. They are obviously called ecosystem services, such as decomposing our waste, pollinating, or purifying water, flood control, and etc. There are many of them, you know. And yeah, we will elaborate more about ecosystem services in the next slide. But the third main broad reason for conserving biodiversity, guys, is social and spiritual benefits, because biodiversity and its different levels can have different social and spiritual values and benefits to people that people can use, and also biodiversity can provide different recreational and also tourism opportunities that we as humans can use and can get benefit from. So, and also it's good. Sorry, we're getting too much light coming in from my window. Um, it's good to remind ourselves about extinction rate was that occur on the earth, and we know about that. And also, in addition to these extinction waves, we have some, or we had actually some local extinctions that happened or is happening around the earth, and we know that species are disappearing, and also ecosystems are being degraded by different human activities. So it's worth to remind ourselves about all of these actually threatening processes that deteriorate with different levels of biodiversity. And one of the main strategies that is globally accepted is protecting land or sea that contain high level of biodiversity. We know that many international organizations have been working on protection and mainstream biodiversity protection for so long. Among all of these international attempts, guys, we know about IUCN, which stands for International Union for Conservation of Nature, and you see the definition at the bottom of this slide. So IUCN has been working on the protection of mainstream biodiversity, and also it has a definition for protected area. It has provided this definition just to help the countries to identify different protected areas. So we have a definition, a basic definition of protected areas provided by you see on this slide. I will read the definition for you first. A protected area is an area of land or sea especially dedicated to the protection and maintenance of biological diversity and of natural and associated cultural resources and managed through legal and other effective means. So you see that different aspects and dimensions of this definition have been highlighted for you. I have made the different aspects red for you here, guys, to this slide. So the first one is maintenance of biological diversity. Yes, we know about that. The main objective of protected area should be obviously maintenance of biological diversity. But the other aspect that needs to be taken into consideration is cultural values. And also you see all of these should be managed based on legal and other effective means. Effective means was can be related to different methodologies, scientific methodologies, for example, that exist and are available for protected area management, and we can use them. Another definition of protected area that you see that I think include the ultimate objective of establishing and managing protected areas. I will read it for you. A protected area is a clearly defined geographical space, recognized, dedicated, and managed through legal and other effective means to achieve the long-term conservation of nature with associated ecosystem services and cultural values. So we got familiar about protecting and conserving nature, and we got familiar about legal and other effective means in the previous slide. But what is new in this slide about the definition of protected area is associated ecosystem services and cultural values that I told you they are other main effective factors that need to be considered. So I can say that the overarching objective of protected area is conserving all of excuse me, all of these dimensions. For example, conserving nature, natural resources, biodiversity, ecosystem services, and also cultural values. So we know that IUCN has put many efforts actually into presenting different categories for protected areas, and this slide is just pointing out that section. So the last version came out in 1992, based on which IUCN suggested countries to try to identify different protected areas. So these protected areas obviously follow their own management objectives, and the countries can identify and establish different protected areas based on obviously the ecological and socio-economic characteristics as well. So the slide is saying IUCN has a definition and 6 categories of protected areas defined by the management objectives. The details of these and guidelines to their application are both being revised. And I have IUCN categories obviously here for you. IUCN's 6 protected areas management categories, and I think you are familiar with these categories. For example, category 1, which is called strict nature reserve. As you see, we have the highest level of protection has been prescribed for this category, and then we have category 2, national parks. It has been suggested that a large extent of natural areas should be managed or allocated or being allocated to national park, and then we have category 3, 4, 5, and category 6, which is called managed resource protected area, managed primarily for sustainable use of ecosystems, and in which in this category, actually sustainable use of ecosystems are allowed, and this use obviously must be based on ecological capacity and potential of the area's resources. So another short version of different types of protected area categories. Not all protected areas are created equal. That's the point for these categories. And yes, you see again the different categories. Each one has been following its own management objectives, obviously, and countries around the world have been trying to establish protected areas based on these categories and policy and guidelines. So yeah, as I said in the last in the previous slide, category 1 is very restricted. All people are excluded from these areas except for researchers. In category 2, national park, people can visit some parts of these protected areas, obviously. Many activities are not allowed, and the higher categories, guys, are less strict, and other activities are permitted. For example, in category 6, as we said, sustainable use of natural ecosystems are allowed. And yes, actually, I would say have many references for helping countries in the protected area management process. And this is just an example that I have brought for you from the reference that IUCN has published, guidelines for applying protected area management categories that the countries can use. So I think now about 30 years have been passed from the time that IUCN developed different categories. When we said that it's about 1992. And from that time, countries have been trying to select and develop protected areas. So we can say that until now, implementation of these categories and the protected area establishment has been one of the main strategies that global communities are in their hands to conserve biodiversity. So just briefly reviewing the history of protected area establishment, guys, in this slide, as you can see in this figure, we know that the first protected area was Yellowstone National Park, established in the United States in 1872. And after that, we didn't have many protected areas established until 1920 or 1930 decade. And after that, we see an increase in the number of protected areas or in the establishment of protected areas. This figure obviously shows the trend until 2003, but we know that the trend was increasing and has been increasing in different countries around the world. And another update information for you about the terrestrial protected areas that you see in this slide. We have now about 247,000 protected areas established around the world, and this number of protected areas cover more than 15% of the Earth's land surface around the world. And this slide shows the distribution of different protected areas in different continents, in different countries, and also you see some information in the left side of the slide, showing that yes, currently we have about 246,000 protected areas, and this information is something that WDPA has provided. Another figure from the location of protected areas around the world, and also the distribution of different types of protected areas. And as we said before, we have different types of protected areas, and not all protected areas are created equal. So in this slide, based on the legend in the left-hand side, you can see the distribution of different types of protected areas. So what have we learned until now? We learned that protected areas are the primary strategy implemented to halt the global loss of biodiversity or the global decline in biodiversity. I have just three main goals of protected areas that we want to review together here. The first one is saying, or even we can conclude that based on the first one, regardless of the types of protected areas, we can say that the ultimate goal of protected areas is protecting species in their natural habitat. And the second point is saying preserve biodiversity, focus on areas of high species richness or endangered, which means that obviously we should the areas with high level of species richness and endangered should be in our specific care and attention if we are doing conservation. And the third main goal is saying preserve large and functioning ecosystems and their services, which are saying another in addition to the two previous two main goals, protected areas should be protect ecosystem services that are provided by ecosystems. And I will elaborate more about ecosystem services, I think, in the next slide. Yes, you see benefits provided by protected areas, and yes, you also see some of the services that protected areas can provide as different types of benefits that we as humans can obtain from ecosystems. Yes, if I want to say just some examples for you, for example, clean water, which is very important for everyone around the world, and especially for us in our region, Middle East, and also nutrient cycling, when different parts of ecosystems allow the circulation of nutrients, and also carbon sequestration, capturing carbon dioxide from atmosphere to slow CO2 pollution or to mitigate even global warming. Are there just some examples about the benefits that we can get from protected areas? And all of these services, guys, can provide benefits and values to society. And that's why reflecting all of these services and benefits have been in focus of international organizations such as IUCN as well, along with the main objective, which is biodiversity conservation. So the slide is saying the world's protected area network contains a host of values to society. The protected area categories seek to reflect these while focusing on the core mission of IUCN. So yes, in addition to the main objective, which is biodiversity protection, we need to consider these benefits and the values that provide to society. So elaborating more on ecosystem services and the importance of these services for us, I have brought this figure from Millennium Ecosystem Assessment for you. We have ecosystem services and the different types of ecosystem services in the left-hand side in the box, and also we have constituents of well-being, different dimensions and elements of well-being, human well-being in the right-hand side in the box. And we also see some arrows with different words trying to make link just between these two sets of factors. And it's just totally showing how our well-being dependent on these services that biodiversity and natural systems can provide. And I have found just an example, one only example from ecosystem services, one type of ecosystem services, providing clean water. As you are reading from the slide, it has been found that the national park provides about 18% of required amount of water for 8 million people in a city in Colombia. And that's just an example of the unique and actually tremendous importance of protecting these areas to at least keep getting these valuable services for our survival if we want to also think about our survival. So another global attempt is something that has been done about uh, preparing a strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020. That has been done by Convention on Biological Diversity, as you see from the slide. So in 2010, the party, the signatories to the Convention on Biological Diversity, had a meeting which was held in Japan, and they adopted a strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020, which was actually a 10-year framework for action by all countries and stakeholders to safeguard and protect biodiversity and the benefits it provides to people. So obviously this strategic plan was set based on a vision and a mission that you see from the slide. I will read these parts for you guys just to get more familiar with these parts. Vision of the strategic plan was living in harmony with nature. By 2050, biodiversity is valued, conserved, restored, and wisely used, maintaining ecosystem services, sustaining a healthy planet, and delivering benefits essential for all people. And we see that the main aspects of protection, both biodiversity and ecosystem services, have been considered in the vision. But about how about the mission? The mission was take effective and urgent action to fight the loss of biodiversity in order to ensure that by 2020 ecosystems are resilient and continue to provide essential services, thereby securing the planet's variety of life and contributing to human well-being and poverty eradication. So it's obvious that if we conserve biodiversity and we conserve the potential of the ecosystems to provide ecosystem services, we can have these benefits from the next steps, which is securing planet's right of life and protecting our well-being and reduce poverty or increase poverty reduction. So Based on this vision and this mission, the countries of CBD set 20 targets, which is known as 20 Archival biodiversity targets. And obviously, they suggested some implementation mechanisms to help countries to actually meet these targets. Yes, they are 20 targets. We won't have enough time to review all of them, but just we review just one of them, which is target 11, and I have, I think, the content in the next slide. But this slide is just focusing and highlighting the main aspects of the strategic plan that you see from the slide, taking effective and urgent action to halt the loss of biodiversity to ensure that by 2020 securing the planet's variety of life and contributing to human well-being and poverty eradication. And obviously, the next point is that the governments around the world have committed to establishing their national targets in support of the Archie global targets. So Archie target 11, which is related to the previous sections that we reviewed about the protected area establishment and expansion. So I first read the content of target 11 for you. By 2020, at least 17% of terrestrial and inland water areas and 10% of coastal and marine areas, especially areas of particular importance for biodiversity and ecosystem services, are conserved. How? Through effectively and equitably managed, ecologically representative, and well-connected ecosystems of protected areas and integrated into wider landscape and seascape. So we are seeing that the target is saying we have to protect at least 17% of the terrestrial land by 2020, which means the end of last year, which was 2020. But yes, as we know and as we reviewed together, we couldn't meet actually this target. And also this figure is showing how we have done until now in terms of the protection. The green line is showing you we are currently have about 2006.67% of the terrestrial land protected, which is not 17%, and also about the marine protection. The target was saying that we have to at least protect 10%, but we are doing something about 8% of the marine protection at the moment. So until now, we know about the importance of protected areas and the services we can provide. And also we reviewed some of the global commitments that the countries have. And now we want to highlight and talk about one of the most important points in all of these global commitments, and that is taking or considering relationships that exist between parts, people, and planet that you see from the slide. And I have some points related to these parts for you in the slide. So the next point, the first point, find better and fairer ways to conserve natural and cultural diversity involving governments, businesses, and citizens in establishing and managing parks, which is, yes, what we review until now. We all need to work together in order to protect biodiversity and cultural diversity as well. So the second form is saying is inspire people around the world and across generations to be connected with nature, which can be done through education, awareness raising, to establish or re-establish connection with nature. And the last point, demonstrate nature's solution to our planet's challenges, such as climate change, health, food, and water security. Um, which is saying considering these relationships and working on them can help us actually find better solutions for different challenges that we face in our daily lives in our planet. So just to highlight more about the importance of these relationships, as I have brought a sentence for you, and I will read it for you. The goal of parks and protected areas is to contribute as much as possible to the range of choices available to the children of the future. They cannot choose the impossible or dream the unimaginable. So it's just saying, thinking about next generations and their needs are also important. We should not limit next generations' choices, or we are responsible for them, and we should allow them to use these services for their survival. If this concept has been characterized in the concept of sustainable development as well, so it's very important to consider it. So we will be elaborating more on the relationships between the people and parks, or between people and protected areas in general. But before that, it's good to review or talk about different approaches that have been existed to nature conservation. So you see two different approaches that have been underlined for you in this slide. For example, first one is protectionist approach, which focus on the protection of species without considering rural people's needs and communities' dependence to the nature. So obviously this approach exclude people from the parks. But the next one, which has been highlighted, underlined for you, modern conservation thinking, is newer and more contemporary approach to nature conservation, which really tries to include communities in the park. But yeah, as we know, it's not always easy to manage a protected area that align biodiversity conservation and accommodating communities' needs. So we know that we have a lot to do in this, even with this approach. So more details about differences between these two approaches. First, the protectionist approach punish rural communities for using the natural resources within protected areas, force the relationships between local communities and conservation authorities. Conservation policy often resulted in inadequate conservation of biodiversity, which is telling us that um, we can't deny the relationship or the social relationship that exists between protected areas and their resources with communities residing around protected areas. And if we deny this relationship, we can't say we are effectively manage the protected area. And about the new approach, modern conservation thinking, as you are seeing, establish community-based natural resource utilization programs with communities adjacent to protected areas, as well as those in rural areas, Focus on a human-centered management approach. And effective conservation must be socially and economically relevant and requires the acceptance, active participation, involvement of local communities. So we see that human or local people are in the main focus of this approach in different aspects of nature protection and protected area management. So the negatives with the traditional or the old approach of farming, when does the worst problem happen? I have the answer for you. Worst problems arose when people had a very strong connection to the land, and the model of national park insisted on their removal and complete cessation of any use of the park resources. No consideration of models, including people and sustainable use. That's just highlighting that social relationship that I was telling you in the previous slide. If we want to deny this relationship, yes, most problems happen. We can say that we are successful in managing protected areas. So in this slide, you see that I have different aspects of protected area management based on traditional approach and new approach. Um, just trying to keep the time. I just explained about some of them that I have specified for you with green grasses. For example, based on traditional approach, we set aside some land for conservation, but based on new approach, we run protected areas with social and economic objective. The next one is saying based on traditional approach, protected area is mainly managed for tourists and visitors rather than local people. But the new approach help us manage protected areas in a way that tourism helps local people, and this can be done based on the money that tourists spend when visiting protected areas, and this money can go to local people to help them in their subsistence. And the next point is saying based on traditional approach, we plan and manage protected areas without regard to local opinion, but new approach allow us plan and manage protected areas in a way that meets the needs of local people as well. And the last point is saying, based on the traditional approach, we usually consider national and international view rather than local one. But based on new approach, we can view actually the community as an asset for a successful protected area management. So this figure, I think, provides good information in terms of the vital steps that need to be taken in order to assess and improve protected area management that I have found for you, and I thought maybe I can explain a bit about this figure. So obviously in the top there should be a vision when assessing and improving protected area management. And this vision can be set based on international and national commitments and the strategic plans that we looked at in the previous slide. Within after setting the vision, we have assessed current status of protected areas, for example, or protected area management that you see in the first box. So yes, there are different scientific methodologies for assessing these sections. I have an example for you from the research that we have done in Iran, for Iran actually, and I have that in the next slide. But in the next step, based on the figure, we have a plan to improve. Um, which is saying that every protected area obviously needs to have a management plan which shows a roadmap for managing protected area during a specific amount of time. And this management plan, of course, need to be supported by sustainable funding or finance plan, as you see in the orange box on the right-hand side of the figure. And the next step we got implementation. That means implementing action for the strategies that are suggested in the plan on the ground. And of course, we should monitor if we want to to see if the protected area management is going well and effective. And that's why you see monitor trends and effectiveness in the left-hand side of the figure in the orange box. So this is the example that I told you we have done for Iran. This was the research that I have done with one of my colleagues from the UK, and the result of this research has been published in a paper in high leading journal of Untitled. You see the top left of the slide. You see the title of the paper, Assessing National Human Footprint and Implications for Biodiversity Conservation in Iran. So we actually see how protected area management is going, how well we are doing our conservation. So you see a map of Iran with different terrestrial ecoregions based on the color on the right. You see different types of terrestrial ecoregions that we have in Iran, and you also see the different types of protected areas with different colors, pink, blue, and gray, and you see the distribution of these protected areas across different parts of Iran. And in this slide, actually, you will see two maps. The first one in the left-hand side of the slide is actually a map for human footprint. That in order to generate the national human footprint layer, we first consider some proxies, some factors for human pressure variables. Our variables were, for example, human population density, built environments, croplands, pasturelands, roads, etc. So we had different human pressure factors and layers. We integrated all of these factors, and we generated this pressure, human footprint layer, which showed that what areas in the country are in high level of human pressure that you see from the map. In the right-hand side, you see the figure again about the distribution of different protected areas, but with different colors, as you see based on the legend. The darker colors of protected areas means that there are in higher level of human pressure, and obviously we see that these are distributed from in the north, northwest, and west of the country. And yes, we had different results and findings coming out from this research, but I have just a very brief finding for you here. For example, in this table, you see the different categories of protected areas that we have in Iran. In the first column and in the last column, you see the area under intense pressure, and in percentage. So it means that about 13% of protected areas in Iran are under intense human pressure. And this figure for category 4 is 12, and for category 6 is 28%. And yes, this slide is showing the different steps that need to be taken if we want to prepare a management plan for the protected areas. Yes, the first one, for example, is saying the review, the mission statement, and number 2, review history of the site. So yes, obviously, to start the management plan, we have to check. We have to have the mission, and this mission can be set based on international and also national strategic plans and commitments that our countries have in terms of protected areas. And obviously, we need to collect some data and information and review the history of site management through time. Number 3, develop an inventory of resources and site description. That was the collecting data that I was telling you. It can be for ecological and socio-economic and all the characteristics that our area has. Number 4, identify the major specific problems that require management. In this stage, actually, we can identify all of the threats of threatening processes that exist in our area and need to be listed in the management plan. Number 5, establish a group of formal and informal advisors. Obviously, yes, we have to, we can have different advisors and we have to consult with them about the protected area management. For example, we can consult with the researchers and the scientists, with academic staffs working on universities, and etc. Number 6, develop a management plan for protected areas. And for this section, we can set short-term and long-term objectives. And we also can have a zoning map, which shows every part of our protected area can be assigned or can be allocated to a specific use and to allocate or meet a specific management objective. Number 7, develop annual work plans. We can suggest some strategic plans, some strategies and action plans to maybe reduce the threats or maybe maintain the biodiversity and the cultural values of the area. Number 8, maintain good relations with local communities that I've been saying about this section in the previous slides, and I told it's very important to keep this relationship active and alive. And number 9, look for opportunities to develop cooperative agreements for land use planning that, sorry. So hopefully I don't get started again. Number 9, look for opportunities to develop cooperative agreements for land use planning. which is telling us about the connection and the alignments that need to be considered between our different types of planning, for example, conservation planning and land use planning in the wider extent. And just highlighting the main point of protected area management, ensure participatory planning. The focal point of a good and effective protected areas obviously is participatory planning, making sure that communities are getting involved with different steps that we have been reviewing last in the previous slide. And this involvement can be done through different steps, making sure that services or benefits are being shared with communities. And if we really hope that we can have community support when we are doing conservation and protected area management. So the last slide was the take-home messages that I told you I have for you. So I first read the points for you. Number one, national parks, strictly protected areas are still important as a cornerstone of conservation in many countries. They know this point and they already different information about this point. Number two, not all protected areas are created equal. Other types of protected areas complement national parks. We will see that different references talk about the national park and national park expansion or management plan, but we know that we have other types of protected areas based on IUCN protected area management categories as well, which complement the meaning of conservation in general. Number three, attempt to work better with communities, including local people. We talked a lot about the importance of including and involving local people in protected area management. Number four, hard decisions do not go away. Yes, we know about the scientific methodologies that we can use when managing protected areas or assessing the effectiveness of protected area management. But there are always some issues, and sometimes we have to make very hard decisions. The issues, I have some examples of the issues. For example, the residents on park, sustainable use, short-term versus long-term needs and interests of people, and sometimes political issues. Number five, many park services are changing, transforming at least to be more embracing of the new approach. Yes, this is about the new approach that we have been reviewing on modern conservationist approach, which is good to be adopted by protected area managers, and it's saying that transforming is happening. Number six, the protected area system should be managed with a high level of cooperation between local people and the protected area authorities in a manner appropriate to cultural heritage and the protection of natural and cultural values, which focus on the main aspects of protection and protected area management, both biodiversity conservation and also cultural values as well. And number seven, protected areas should be managed in the context of surrounding landscapes with consideration of local communities' needs and aspirations, which is highlighting the social relationships that exist between people residing around protected areas and also the resource of protected areas or the services that protected areas can provide to people. Thank you, guys. That is the end of my presentation, and hopefully you find the information interesting and useful. So just let me know if there is any question.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, doctor.
Alaikum salam. Hello.
I'm Dr. Dunya, the head of Ecology Department at the College of Science. First of all, I would like to thank you for your great presentation. And
You're
I
welcome.
would like to ask
Thank
you,
you.
in your opinion, what are the main causes of biodiversity extinction?
Sorry, can you repeat your question? What are the main reasons?
Okay. What are the main
Yeah,
causes
yeah, yeah.
of biodiversity extinction?
Okay. Thank you, Professor, for your attending and for your kind words about presentation. I think, yes, this is a global issue actually, the biodiversity loss and the local extinctions that we have. It's not just for our countries or our region, it's happening globally. But based on the references and the papers that have been publishing around the world, the main biodiversity, the main causes for biodiversity loss can be through degrading and fragmenting habitats as the natural area that species can live. So we can say that habitat loss, habitat fragmentation, pollution, different kinds of pollution as we are getting more developed in different countries, and war in some countries because we still have different political issues, and these issues can have more pollution for our natural areas. And obviously, yeah, all of these reasons, all of these main causes can be related to human and their activities. And we know that we have an increasing trend in the number of people, human population living around the world. So we can say that to halt all of these causes for biodiversity loss, we should work together. We can have different strategies, and obviously global strategies can help us to define national and then local strategies and actions. And if we can work together, even we can solve more big issues or bigger issues. Another question, God.
Thank you, doctor.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you. If there is any question, I'm happy to answer. But if there is not, and you think everything is okay, we can say goodbye. And I just want to say thank you again for your attendance today. And yes, you have my emails here, I think, yes. Azadeh Karimi at signu.ac.ir. Please send me email if you think you need extra information, or even if you need the paper that I've been talking about, the research from Iran, just let me know and send me an email, and we can send the paper to you.
Again, I would like to thank you for your cooperation with our university.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure for me as well to be here and make this connection. And hopefully, maybe one day we can meet each other in the actual world in Firdaus University or in Basra University and talk more about our joint or shared interests one day, maybe.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you, guys. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Doctor,
Thank
for
you.
all
Thank you.
informations. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
organizing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye.
الله حافظ.
Bye.
مع السلامة.
Bye.
شكرا دكتورة دنيا، شكرا حضوركم طلاب.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور. شكرا
محاضرة
جزيلا.
جديدة. شكرا ست، شكرا.
مع السلامة.
بالتوفيق، مع السلامة.
طلاب شكرا جزيلا لحضوركم، تقدرون تاخذون راحتكم.